this area and shot the children, wounded the woman, and then one of the children escaped by jumping off the roof. I think broke her leg in the process. So we really don't know. He then hijacked a vehicle and took off, but the police gave chase. Then he fired on the police, and then he ended up being deceased.
8 children, 1 house, and a timeline that the media got completely wrong. What you were told in the first 24 hours was not the full story. And the moment investigators went back and pieced together the real sequence of events, everything shifted. The order changed, the locations changed, and the motive became something far darker than anyone initially reported. My name is your host, and if you are serious about true crime, unsolved cases, mass shootings, criminal investigations, and breaking news cases that the mainstream media rushes through, you are exactly where you need to be. Hit that subscribe button right now because we break these cases down slowly, carefully, and completely. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from tonight, because this case out of Shreveport, Louisiana has people across the country, across the world asking the same question. How does something this horrific happen, and how did the official story end up so wrong for so long? Let's go back to the beginning, but not the beginning you already heard. The real beginning? It starts before sunrise, before the 911 calls, before the chase, before the shootout. It starts the night before, when 8 children ages 3 to 11 were all together inside a house on West 79th Street in Cedar Grove, Shreveport, Louisiana. A house that, by the time the sun came up, would become one of the deadliest crime scenes involving children in Louisiana history. The suspect is 3. 1-year-old Shamar Elkins, Army National Guard veteran, a man with a prior weapons conviction, a man who, according to people close to him, had been making chilling statements in the weeks and months before this day. Statements about demons. Statements about not being able to come back from the mental place he was in. A man who, just 2 months before this attack, in February of 2026, had attempted suicide and received counseling at a VA hospital. He was working at UPS at the time of the murders. This was not a man who snapped without warning. This was a man surrounded by warnings that nobody acted on fast enough. Now here is where the story gets complicated and where the media narrative broke down almost immediately. Shamar Elkins was not in a simple marriage. He was not in a simple relationship. He was legally married to a woman named Shaniqua Pugh, but simultaneously, he was in a relationship with Shaniqua's own sister, a woman named Christina Snow, 2 sisters, same family. And between both of these women, Shamar Elkins had fathered 7 biological children. Let that land for a second. 7 children, 2 sisters, 1 man at the center of a family completely bound together by blood, by law, and by a level of dysfunction that investigators are still trying to fully map. And it gets deeper, because there is a 3rd sister. A 3rd sister who was not romantically involved with Shamar at all, but who was married into the broader family. She was there that morning, inside the house on West 79th Street. And she is the reason we have a first-hand 911 account of what happened before law enforcement even arrived. Stay with me, because the timeline is everything here. And when you hear the corrected version, the version built from 911 audio and updated investigative reporting, you will understand why the first version spread so fast and why it was so wrong. At approximately 5:59 inches the morning, the first 911 call comes in from West 79th Street. Not from a neighbor, not from a passerby. From the 3rd sister, the one with no romantic ties to Shamar. She is inside that house. She tells the dispatcher that Shamar has shot everyone inside the home. 9 people live there. She is the caller. And within about 60 seconds, she reports that she and her daughter have already fled. They got out, they climbed onto the roof, they jumped down into the backyard, and they ran. 1 body was later found on that roof. The details of that discovery are still being processed by investigators. But that first call, 5:59 a.m., is the call that tells us where this massacre began. It did not begin at his wife's house. It did not begin with Shaniqua. It began at the house where the children were. The house where Christina Snow's children were staying. The house where multiple children from both sisters had gathered and slept that night. He went there first. He executed 8 children inside that home. And then he left. Officers arrive at West 79th Street at approximately 6'1" to 6'3" inches the morning. They make contact with the caller. They know immediately they are dealing with multiple shooting victims inside, including children. Then at 6:07 a.m., 8 minutes after the first call, a second 911 call comes in. This one from the 500 block of West Harrison Street. And this is the call that threw the entire early narrative off course. It is Shaniqua, his wife. She calls 911 and tells dispatchers that her boyfriend, her husband, shot her. And then she says something that sends police in a completely different direction. She tells them he took her 3 children and fled. She believed that. In that moment, lying there shot multiple times in the face and in the stomach, she genuinely believed her children were with him, alive, in his vehicle. But they were not. Here is what investigators would later piece together. Before Shamar went to Shaniqua's house on Harrison Street, before he shot her, he had already killed the children. All 8 of them, already gone. He had gone to the house on West 79th first. He had committed the murders. And then, and this detail is what makes this case psychologically. Unlike almost anything we have covered on this channel, he went to Shaniqua and told her he had the kids with him. He let her believe they were alive. He let her believe they were in danger, but still breathing. And then he shot her. Whether that was a calculated manipulation or a final twisted power play, we may never know. But when Shaniqua called 911, she told them what she believed to be true. And law enforcement, working off her call, now believed 3 children were inside a moving vehicle with an armed and dangerous suspect. This is true crime. This is what happens in the fog of a mass casualty event. Information comes in fast. Information comes in wrong, and decisions get made on incomplete intelligence. Between 6:20 and 6:29 a.m., Shamar Elkins carjacks a man at gunpoint and steals his vehicle. Police are now managing 2 active scenes simultaneously. They are told based on Shaniqua's call that 3 children may be in that car. A pursuit begins. He leads officers out of Shreveport and into neighboring Bossier City. And here is where the story ends, and where it gets even more haunting. Shamar Elkins does not drive randomly. He does not flee without direction. He drives to a specific address, a specific person, a man named Michael Maheux, his former Army commander, a man Shamar had known since childhood, a man he called Uncle, a man who, the day before, just hours before this massacre, had spoken with Shamar about his upcoming divorce proceedings. Shaniqua and Shamar had a court date scheduled for that very Monday. A separation, a custody situation that was already fracturing in real time. Michael Maheux posted directly to Facebook in the aftermath, and his account is one of the most raw, first-hand descriptions of a crime scene conclusion you will ever read. He said he was completely unaware of what had happened. He said his security camera activated. He heard a voice at his door and opened it, not knowing. Shamar was standing there, short barrel AR-style carbine in hand. They talked for less than a minute. And then Shamar Elkins put the barrel to his own mouth. According to Maheux, as Shamar fired, police who had arrived on scene responded, believing shots were being fired at them. Maheux himself was struck by secondary glass from the chaos. He wrote, and this is not a quote, but his message carried words that no one who read them will forget. He expressed that he believed Shamar came to him looking for the safety and the love he had felt from him as an adopted uncle, as a trusted officer, as maybe the last person on earth he felt connected to. He drove past every exit. He drove past every opportunity to turn himself in, and he ended it at the door of the one person who may have represented something close to stability in his life. Louisiana State Police confirmed his death at approximately 7:03 a.m. The official cause of death, whether by his own hand or by police gunfire, was listed as still under investigation at the time of multiple reports. But the testimony of Michael Maheux, an eyewitness standing feet away, aligns directly with the self-inflicted cause. At approximately 6:43 a.m., officers cleared the vehicle. No children. The car was empty. They returned to West 79th, and that is when the full scope of what had happened became undeniable. 8 children, all confirmed dead inside the same house. Jayla Elkins, 3 years old. Shayla Elkins, 5. Braylon Snow, 5. Kadarian Snow, 6. Kayla Pugh, 6. Layla Pugh, 7. Market Pugh, 10, and Christina Snow, 11 years old. 7 of these children were Shamar's own biological children, shared between his wife, Shaniqua Pugh, and her sister, Christina Snow. The 8th child was his nephew, a cousin to his own kids, all from the same family, all in the same house, all gone before 6 a.m. The Caddo Parish coroner confirmed that Shaniqua Pugh was the mother of 4 of the murdered children. Christina Snow was the mother of 3 others. And the 8th child was Shamar's nephew, one of the Snow surname children, making him a blood relative to the very children he was killed alongside. Both women survived. Shaniqua Pugh shot multiple times. Christina Snow shot in the head. Both critically injured. Both alive. The 3rd sister and her daughter, the ones who jumped from the roof and called 911, survived. Now I want to ask you something directly. And I want you to think about this before you scroll past it. Because this is not just a criminal case. This is a story about warning signs that existed for years. A woman who raised Shamar Elkins reportedly said 3 years before this massacre that he threatened to kill her, his children, and himself if anyone tried to leave. 3 years. That threat existed 3 years ago, and 2 months before the murders, he attempted suicide. He received VA counseling. He was back in the community, back with access, back with weapons. At what point does the system have enough information? At what point does a prior weapons conviction, a documented suicide attempt, years of threatening language, and an upcoming custody court date become enough to intervene? I'm not asking that politically. I'm asking that as a true crime community. As people who follow these cases not just for the drama, but because we want to understand where it goes wrong, where the gaps are, where the next case might be prevented. Because there is always a next case. And there is always a gap. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think more could have been done with the warning signs that existed? And more importantly, do you believe the first version of this story would have ever been corrected without the 911 audio coming out and community members pushing back on the original timeline? Because I'll tell you right now, the first 24 hours of coverage on this case had the order of events completely reversed, had the location wrong, had the relationships oversimplified, and had the cause of death reported as confirmed when law enforcement had explicitly said it was still under investigation. That is not a small error. When you are covering a case involving 8 murdered children, the sequence of how it happened and where and in what order matters. It matters to the investigation. It matters to the families. And it matters to the public trying to make sense of something this devastating. The corrected timeline tells a story that is actually more coherent, more psychologically consistent. A man in a deteriorating mental state, facing the end of his marriage, with a history of threatening to take his children with him if anyone left, went to the house where those children were sleeping. Before anyone was awake, before anyone could respond, he committed the murders. He went to his wife. He told her the kids were with him, keeping her in a state of fear and confusion even as he shot her. He fled. He led police on a chase. And he ended it at the door of the one man he may have still trusted. That is the story. That is the updated, verified 911 confirmed timeline of what happened in Shreveport, Louisiana in the early morning hours of this case. And if you have been following this case from the beginning, if you watched the earlier coverage and felt like something did not add up, you are right to question it. That instinct is exactly what this community is built on. We do not accept the first version. We wait. We analyze. We listen to the 911 audio. We read the Facebook posts from eyewitnesses. We follow the case as it develops. If this is the kind of true crime coverage you want detailed, updated, not rushed, subscribe right now. Turn on notifications. Because this case is not over. There are still questions about the investigation. There are still questions about the family dynamics that led to this morning. There are still questions about what happened in that house in the minutes before 5:59 a.m. and whether anyone had any warning at all. We will be here when those answers come out. 8 children, ages 3 to 11, Shamar Elkins, Shreveport, Louisiana, Cedar Grove, West 79th Street. This is the case. This is the update. And this is the truth as we know it right now. Stay locked in.